Hi, I'm Em, and this is Läser, which is Swedish for Em Reads. Today I'm going to be reviewing The Rest of Us Just Live Here by Patrick Ness. It's been a while since I read this, but I was just editing my December wrap-up and I realized that, dang, I still have things to say about this book. Let's make a video review. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. Now, I would say that this review in some ways are going to be spoiler-free. However, I'm going to be explaining the plot quite a bit, because this book is definitely not what a lot of people going into it without knowing anything about it, and I think that that might be affecting the reading experience in a negative way for a lot of people, and therefore I want to bring this book into the right light. If you still feel like you want to go into this book blind, you can do that and you can come back later. But if you want to know what this story is actually about, I really suggest that you stay and watch this video, because I have no intentions of spoiling it whatsoever. The Rest of Us Just Live Here is a young adult novel in which we follow an American high school senior called Mike. In Mike's hometown, a lot of supernatural events have occurred over the last 30 years or so. Everybody knows about this, but most of the people don't think that it's a big deal. The only people that do think it's a big deal are the people who take care of it, and those are the indie kids that go to Mike's high school. Mike, however, is not one of those people. All he wants is to graduate high school, win the heart of his longtime crush, and try as best as he can to deal with his mental illness. However, when a new form of supernatural creatures come to attack the town, Mike's life is affected by it as well. Now, you might think that this here is a fantasy book, but it's not, okay? It's not. It's definitely branded as one, but it really isn't. It definitely has fantasy elements in it, but it focuses way more on the contemporary, and I personally really like that. However, most people who go into this book expecting it to be a fantasy novel are going to be disappointed. I definitely think that it's a problem that this book is being marketed as a fantasy novel when it's definitely not. And I really think that Harper Teen could have done the marketing in a different way, and then more people probably would have enjoyed it, because a big factor of reading a book is whether or not it meets your expectations. And part of the reason for me making this review is to raise awareness of what the actual plot of this book, so that more people will have expectations that seem fair to this book, and so that more people will enjoy it, because it is a book that deserves a lot of love. This book is brilliant, okay? But you're going to miss out on all of that brilliantness if you're reading it and being disappointed. Then you're not going to notice how good it actually is, because if you think it's supposed to be something else, you won't be able to see it for what it really is. And I would best describe this book as a humorous contemporary with a lot of focus on mental illness and with a little dash of fantasy mixed into it, but it's definitely not a big part of the plot, and you need to know that, because otherwise you're going to be so disappointed. Now let's talk about my opinions. First thing that I really want to talk about is the characters, because I really liked our main protagonist, Mike. He comes from a very bad upbringing, and he deals with a lot of negative emotions, both in the form of a very specific type of OCD that he has, but also in the form of a lot of bad self-esteem. Now I'm going to get a little bit personal, because my self-esteem has hit an all-time low during these past 6 months or so. When I read this book, I really connected to Mike, and some of the things that he said when he talked about his mental illness, it was just so brilliantly done. And that is a big factor in why I connected to him so much. I really enjoyed reading about Mike's dynamic with his two sisters. In a way, the three of them reminded me about the song sisters from the To All the Boys I've Loved Before duology. I didn't really feel like I connected as well to any of the other characters in this book, but they were all very diverse and very nice people that I really enjoyed reading about. I also want to talk about the writing style. Most of the times it was very simple, which I really liked. Even though the story was definitely slow-paced, it flew by really quickly for me, which I appreciated. And like I've mentioned before, the way this book describes depression is just so amazing. Patrick Ness is doing it fantastically. This book has a thing going on where in the beginning of every chapter you get a short little text that tells you about what is happening to the chosen ones. And honestly, I didn't care about what happened in that other story very much. I understand that it's supposed to be there to kind of mock the cliche about chosen ones, but instead it just felt sort of cliche itself, and it was just not very interesting to read at all. Lastly, I want to share some of my opinions about the story. I really liked the pacing, as I said before, and I also really liked how the two storylines were doing in relation to each other. When I first started reading, I thought that the story was going to be very John Green-esque, at least for Mike's part, because the story of Mike and his love interest definitely reminded me about John Green's love stories, but I mostly didn't get that vibe at all, which was very refreshing. I really enjoyed the ending, even though most people would have thought that it would be very predictable. There were some things that I didn't see coming that I really liked about it. Like you might have noticed, I really enjoyed this book, but I will say that it is definitely not a book for everyone. I would mostly recommend it to people who like contemporary, especially people who like contemporary that deals with mental illnesses, because like I've mentioned before, this book does it brilliantly. Due to my expectations not being correct and all of the false advertising and stuff, I ended up giving this book 4 out of 5 stars. Despite that rating, however, it is definitely a book that has stuck out to me. Just the fact that I'm filming this review almost a month after I finished the book says a lot about the fact that I still had a lot to say about it despite all that time and all the other books that I've read since that has gone by. But that is going to be it for this video. If you have read The Rest of Us Just Live Here, I would love to hear your thoughts about it. Leave me a comment below telling me if you liked it, if you didn't like it, what your thoughts were. I would love to know. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I will see you in my next one. Bye!